I'll never forget the moment my mother-in-law walked into my hospital room, just 3 hours after I'd given birth to my daughter Emma. I was exhausted, holding my newborn against my chest when Patricia, my husband Mark's mother, marched in with something in her hand that made my blood run cold. It was a DNA test kit. Before anyone gets too attached, she announced loudly enough for the nurses to hear, "I think we need to clear something up." Mark stood up from the chair beside my bed. "Mom, what are you doing? Don't mom me, Mark," Patricia cut him off. "I've had my suspicions for months. The timing of this pregnancy was very convenient, wasn't it, Sarah?" I felt tears burning my eyes, but I wasn't going to let her see me cry. Not now. Not after everything I'd been through to bring Emma into this world. "Get out," I whispered. "Not until we settle this," Patricia said, waving the DNA test kit in the air. "I saw how you two were barely speaking last year. I saw how you went on that girl's trip to Miami. And now suddenly 9 months later here's this baby." Mark's face went red. "Mom, stop it right now." "Oh, so you're defending her?" Patricia's voice dripped with venom. "You're so blinded by whatever spell she's cast on you that you can't see what's right in front of your face. That baby could be anyone's." The nurse who'd been checking my vitals froze. "Mom, I'm gonna have to ask you to lower your voice. This is a recovery room." "I don't care what this is," Patricia snapped. "I care about my son's future and I'm not gonna watch him raise another man's child." Something inside me snapped. "Fine," I said, my voice steady now. "Fine, you want a DNA test? Let's do it. Right now." Mark's eyes widened. "Sarah, you don't have to prove anything to her." "Yes, I do," I said, looking directly at Patricia. "Because I want her to apologize on her knees when she sees the results. I want her to know exactly how cruel she's been, and I want it in writing." Patricia's lips curled into a smile. "Oh, I'll do more than apologize if I'm wrong, dear. I'll pay for the baby's entire college education. But when I'm right, and I know I am, you're going to leave this family and never contact my son again." "Deal," I said without hesitation. The nurse looked uncomfortable. I'll get the doctor." 20 minutes later, Dr. Chen walked in with a more professional DNA test kit. He'd been my OB/GYN throughout the entire pregnancy, and I could see the disappointment in his eyes as he looked at Patricia. "Mrs. Thornton," he said quietly, "this is highly irregular. My patient just went through a difficult labor, and this kind of stress is not recommended." "Just do the test, doctor," Patricia said, sitting down in the chair like she owned the place. Dr. Chen swabbed Emma's cheek gently, then turned to Mark. "Mr. Thornton, I'll need a sample from you as well." Mark looked at me and I nodded. "It's okay," I whispered. "Let's end this once and for all." As Dr. Chen collected Mark's sample, Patricia sat there with her arms crossed, looking smug. "You know, Sarah," she said, "I never trusted you from the moment Mark brought you home. You came from nothing. No family money, no connections, and you worked as a waitress when you met my son." I didn't respond. I just held Emma closer. "A girl like you," Patricia continued, "sees a successful man like Mark and suddenly you're pregnant. Suddenly you're trapped in this family. I've seen women like you before." Mark slammed his hand on the hospital tray table. "That's enough." "You've said enough, Mom." "Have I?" Patricia raised an eyebrow. "Or have I not said enough over the past 4 years while I watched you throw your life away on someone so clearly beneath you?" Dr. Chen cleared his throat. "The lab can have results in about 2 hours. We have a rapid testing facility on site for urgent paternity cases." 2 hours, Patricia said, checking her watch. "I can wait 2 hours to watch this house of cards collapse." Those 2 hours were the longest of my life. Mark sat beside me holding my hand, whispering apologies I didn't want to hear. Patricia sat in the corner, scrolling through her phone, occasionally glancing up at me with that satisfied smirk. The nurses came and went, checking on Emma, checking on me, and each time they entered, I could see the pity in their eyes. They'd heard everything. When Dr. Chen finally returned, he was holding a folder and his face was pale, like genuinely pale. He looked at Patricia first, then at Mark, then at me, and I saw his jar in, he said quietly. Patricia stood up immediately. "Well, don't keep us in suspense, doctor." Dr. Chen opened the folder slowly, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly. "Mrs. Thornton," he began, his voice careful, "the test confirms that Mark is indeed the biological father of baby Emma. There is a 99.97% match." I felt relief flood through me, but it was quickly replaced by anger. Patricia's face fell for just a moment before she tried to recover. "Well," she stammered, I suppose I was wrong about that specific accusation, but it doesn't change the fact that you owe my wife an apology," Mark interrupted, standing up. "That you humiliated her in front of hospital staff, that you called her a liar and a gold digger. and that you ruined what should have been one of the happiest days of our lives. But Dr. Chen wasn't finished. There's something else, he said, and the way he said it made everyone freeze. Something else in the test results that I think you all need to know about. My heart stopped. What do you mean something else? Patricia's face had gone from smug to confused to now genuinely worried. What are you talking about, doctor? Dr. Chen looked directly at Patricia. When we run these paternity tests, we don't just compare the baby's DNA to the potential father's. We also can see genetic markers, family connections, inherited conditions. He paused, and I could see him choosing his words very carefully. And in this case, the test revealed something unexpected. Mark squeezed my hand. What did it reveal? The test shows that you, Mark, share only approximately 25% of your DNA with your mother, Patricia. There was complete silence in the room. I didn't understand what that meant at first, but I watched Patricia's face drain of all color. That's not possible, Patricia whispered. There must be a mistake. Dr. Chen shook his head slowly. There's no mistake. The markers are very clear. A biological mother and son would share approximately 50% of their DNA. You and Mark share the amount typically seen between, he paused again, half-siblings, or an aunt and nephew. Mark let go of my hand and stood up. What the hell does that mean? What are you saying? I'm saying, Dr. Chen continued, that based on these results, Patricia Thornton is not your biological mother, Mark. The room started spinning. I watched Mark's face go through about 17 different emotions in the span of 5 seconds. Patricia stood frozen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. No, she finally said. No, this is absurd. I'm his mother. I gave birth to him. I have the birth certificate. I have photos. Mark turned to look at her, and I'd never seen him look at anyone with such intensity. Is there something you need to tell me, Mom? Or should I say Aunt Patricia? Patricia's legs seemed to give out, and she collapsed back into the chair. She put her face in her hands, and for the first time since I'd known this woman, I saw her composure completely shatter. I never wanted you to find out this way, she whispered through her fingers. Find out what? Mark's voice was rising. What is there to find out? Patricia looked up, and there were actual tears in her eyes. Your real mother, she began, her voice breaking, was my sister. My younger sister Caroline. Mark stepped backward like he'd been struck. What? Caroline, your Aunt Caroline who died when I was 5. That Caroline, Patricia nodded, tears streaming down her face now. She got pregnant when she was only 17. The father was some boy from her high school who wanted nothing to do with the baby. Our parents were furious. This was 1985 and they were very traditional, very concerned about the family reputation. They gave her 2 choices, give the baby up for adoption to strangers, or let me and your father raise you as our own. I couldn't breathe. This was not what I'd expected. This was not what anyone had expected. So you, Mark's voice was barely a whisper. You've been lying to me my entire life. Caroline agreed to it, Patricia said desperately. She thought it was best for you. She got to watch you grow up, got to be in your life as your aunt, and you got to have a stable home with 2 parents who could provide for you. And when did she die? Mark asked, his voice cold now. When you were 5, Patricia said quietly. Car accident. It was real. That wasn't a lie. And she never told me. Mark's hands were shaking. In 32 years, my real mother never told me the truth. She wanted to, Patricia admitted. So many times she wanted to. But I convinced her it would only confuse you, only hurt you. I thought I was protecting you. Mark laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. Protecting me. You just accused my wife of cheating on me on the day our daughter was born, because you were so paranoid about people lying and using this family. And the whole time, the biggest lie of all was you. I was trying to protect you from women like, Patricia started, but Mark cut her off. Don't you dare, he said, his voice like ice. Don't you dare try to justify what you did today by pretending you were protecting me. You humiliated Sarah because you've never thought she was good enough. You've treated her like garbage since the day I brought her home. And now I know why. You're terrified someone will do to me what you did, steal someone else's life and pretend it's yours. That's not fair, Patricia sobbed. I raised you. I was there for every scraped knee, every baseball game, every... You were there because you took my mother away from me, Mark shouted. And I saw tears starting to stream down his face too. You took away any chance I had to know her as my mom. She died thinking she couldn't tell me the truth because you manipulated her into silence. Dr. Chen cleared his throat gently. I think I should give you all some privacy. This is clearly a family matter that... We're not family, Mark said, staring at Patricia. Apparently, we never were. Dr. Chen quietly left the room, and I sat there in the hospital bed holding my newborn daughter, watching my husband's entire world fall apart. Patricia reached out toward Mark. Please, sweetheart, you have to understand. I loved you like my own son. But I wasn't your son, Mark said, pulling away from her hand. I was your nephew. And my real mother, my actual mother, is dead. And I can never ask her why, I can never hear her side of the story. All I have is your version. And considering you just tried to destroy my marriage based on absolutely nothing, I don't trust a single word that comes out of your mouth. I need to say something. I finally spoke up, and both of them turned to look at me. Patricia, I said, my voice surprisingly steady, you owe me more than an apology. You owe me a public acknowledgement of what you did here today. Mark's right. You humiliated me in front of the hospital staff. You called me a cheater and a gold digger. You tried to blackmail me into leaving my own husband. And all because of your own guilt and paranoia. Patricia wiped her eyes. Sarah, I don't want to hear it, I interrupted. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to make a very generous contribution to Emma's college fund, as you promised. You're going to write me a formal apology letter. And you're going to give Mark and me space to decide whether you ever get to have a relationship with your granddaughter. Because yes, Patricia, she's still your granddaughter. But that's a privilege now, not a right. Patricia looked like I'd slapped her. You can't keep me from my granddaughter. Actually, Mark said, stepping beside my bed and taking my hand, we can. And we will until you prove that you can treat Sarah with the respect she deserves. My wife just gave birth to our daughter, and instead of celebrating with us, you turned it into a nightmare. So yes, Mom, or Aunt Patricia, or whoever you are, you're gonna have to earn your way back into our lives. But there's more, I said, and I could feel the anger giving me strength. I want you to tell the family, all of them. I want you to tell them what you accused me of today, and I want you to tell them about Mark's real mother. No more secrets. No more lies. The truth comes out, all of it, or you don't get to be part of Emma's life at all. Patricia's face went even paler if that was possible. I can't. If I tell them about Caroline, they'll what? Mark asked. Think less of you. Good, they should. You've been walking around this family acting like you're better than everyone, judging everyone. And you've been living a lie for over 30 years. I never meant to hurt anyone, Patricia whispered. But you did, I said firmly. You hurt Mark by keeping him from his real mother. You hurt Caroline by making her live a lie until she died. And you hurt me today in a way I'm not sure I can ever forgive. So yes, you're going to tell the truth. All of it. Or you can walk out that door right now and never come back. Patricia sat there for a long moment, staring at the floor. Then she stood up slowly, her designer purse clutched in her shaking hands. I need time to think about this, she said quietly. No, Mark said firmly. You don't get time. You make a choice right now. Either you agree to Sarah's terms, all of them, or you leave and we're done. Patricia looked at Emma sleeping in my arms, and I saw something break in her eyes. She's so beautiful, Patricia whispered. She looks just like Caroline did when she was born. Mark's breath caught. You were there. When my mom was born, Patricia nodded. I was 12. I remember holding her in the hospital and thinking she was perfect. And then 17 years later I held you. And you looked exactly the same. That's why it was so easy to pretend you were mine. You looked like you could have been. That doesn't make it right, Mark said, but his voice was softer now. I know, Patricia said, tears flowing freely again. I know it doesn't. But I'm asking you, I'm begging you, please don't take Emma away from me. I've already lost Caroline. I can't lose another generation. Then you know what you have to do, I said quietly. Patricia nodded slowly. I'll tell the family, this weekend. I'll call a family dinner and I'll tell them everything. About Caroline, about the DNA test, about what I accused you of today. All of it. And the apology letter, I pressed. And a contribution to Emma's college fund. $100,000, Patricia said, and I tried not to let my shock show. That's what I would have given if I'd been wrong about the paternity. And I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. Mark looked at me, and I could see he was leaving this decision to me. I thought about everything Patricia had put me through over the past 4 years. The snide comments about my background. The suggestions that I wasn't good enough for her son. The way she'd tried to plan our wedding without my input. The criticism of my career, my clothes, my friends, my family. And now this, the ultimate insult. Accusing me of infidelity while I held our newborn daughter. But I also thought about Emma. I thought about how she deserved to know her family. Even the complicated parts. I thought about Mark and how he'd just lost his mother all over again. and how he might need time to process that Patricia, despite everything, had been the one to raise him. Okay, I finally said, you can stay in our lives. But the very first time you disrespect me or cross a boundary mark and I set, you're done. No second chances after this. Do you understand? Patricia nodded vigorously, yes. Yes, I understand. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for, I held up my hand. Don't thank me. Just do better. Be better. That's all I want. Patricia moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, she said quietly, Caroline would have loved you. She always said Mark needed someone strong, someone who wouldn't take any nonsense from this family. I think she would have been proud of how you stood up to me today. And with that, she left. Mark collapsed into the chair beside my bed and put his head in his hands. I don't even know how to process this, he said, his voice muffled. My whole life is a lie. Not all of it, I said gently, reaching out to touch his shoulder. Your love for me is real. Our daughter is real. The life we're building together is real. Everything else, we'll figure out together. He looked up at me with red eyes. How are you so calm about this? Your mother-in-law just accused you of cheating, and then we found out she's actually my aunt, and my real mom is dead. You should be losing your mind right now. I smiled tiredly. Oh, I'll lose my mind later. Right now, I'm running on adrenaline and spite. But Mark, we just won. She's going to tell the truth. She's going to apologize. And she's putting $100,000 toward Emma's education. That's a pretty good outcome for the worst day ever. He laughed weakly. Only you would find the silver lining in this nightmare. That's why you married me, I said, pulling him closer. Because I don't let anyone push us around. Not even your terrifying, secretly lying actually aunt mother person. Mark kissed my forehead. I love you so much, you know that? I know, I said, looking down at Emma. And now this little girl is going to grow up knowing that her mom doesn't take crap from anyone. And that family secrets always come out eventually. So you might as well tell the truth from the start. The next few days in the hospital were surreal. Patricia didn't come back, but she did send flowers with a card that just said, I'm sorry. Working on the letter. Mark's father, Robert, called and Mark had to tell him everything. That conversation lasted 2 hours and involved a lot of shouting, crying, and eventually a plan for Robert to find any remaining documents or photos of Caroline that Mark had never seen. The family dinner that weekend was apparently legendary. I wasn't there, I was home with Emma, but Mark recorded it on his phone. Patricia stood up in front of Mark's entire extended family, all his aunts, uncles, cousins, and she told them everything, about Caroline, about the teenage pregnancy, about raising Mark as her own son, and about what she'd done at the hospital. Mark said 3 of his aunts got up and walked out. 2 of his uncles started arguing with Patricia about family honor. One cousin actually applauded me for standing up to her. And Mark's grandmother, who was 92 years old and apparently sharp as a tack, stood up and said, I knew about Caroline. We all knew. We just didn't talk about it because that's what you did back then. But Patricia, what you did to that poor girl Sarah is unforgivable. You're lucky she's kinder than you deserve. The apology letter arrived 3 days later. It was 2 pages long, handwritten, and actually seemed genuine. Patricia acknowledged every cruel thing she'd said, every boundary she'd crossed, and every assumption she'd made about me based on my background. She ended it with, You are the daughter I never had, and the mother Mark's daughter deserves. I'm sorry I couldn't see that sooner. The check for $100,000 was paper-clipped to the letter. Mark and I framed the letter and put it in Emma's nursery, not because we forgave Patricia completely, but because we wanted Emma to grow up knowing that people can own their mistakes, that secrets hurt everyone, and that sometimes the biggest battles are won not with violence or revenge, but with truth and boundaries. Patricia kept her distance for a few months, sending gifts and cards but not asking to visit. And then, on Emma's 3-month birthday, she asked if she could come meet her granddaughter properly. Mark and I talked about it for a long time. We set very clear rules, visiting hours, topics that were off limits, consequences if she crossed any lines. And then we said yes. When Patricia held Emma for the first time, she cried. She told Emma stories about Caroline, about how Mark's real mother had been funny and kind and artistic. She showed us photos we'd never seen before, Caroline holding baby Mark, Caroline at her high school graduation, Caroline laughing at a family barbecue. And slowly, very slowly, we started to build something new. Not the relationship we'd had before that was broken beyond repair, but something honest, something real. Patricia would never be the mother-in-law I'd dreamed of, but she became someone I could respect. Someone who'd owned her mistakes and was trying every day to be better. The DNA test that was supposed to destroy my marriage ended up destroying a lie that had hurt my husband for over 30 years. It exposed Patricia's cruelty, yes, but it also exposed a family secret that needed to come to light. And in the strangest way possible, it gave Mark a piece of his mother back. Through Patricia's stories and those old photos, Mark got to know Caroline not as the aunt who died tragically, but as the young woman who'd loved him enough to give him a stable home, even if it meant she could never be called his mother. As for me, I learned that sometimes the worst moments lead to the most important truths. I learned that standing up for yourself, even when you're exhausted and vulnerable and holding a newborn baby, is always worth it. And I learned that my mother-in-law, or aunt-in-law, or whatever she was, had spent so many years being afraid of people lying to her family that she became the biggest liar of all. But most importantly, I learned that Dr. Chen's pale face when he read those DNA results. That moment of pure shock. That was the moment everything changed. That was the moment the truth finally, after 32 years, set everyone free. And sometimes that's exactly what a family needs, the truth, no matter how painful, and someone brave enough to demand it.